Hello, milady. I'm gonna give you. I'm sorry. I'm talking to you like as if you could talk. It's so hot here. I'm like loopy. You got it. How are you? Hot. It's brewing here. Let me check my. Let me check my degrees because I still don't get the Fahrenheit thing. But I'll figure it all out. Let me see. It's only 7. It's only 80 degrees. I'm exaggerating. I'm hot. Hey, James, you came. Thank you. Let me lower this TV. Okay. We need your professional perspective, Mr. James. Hey, Coco. How are you, honey? Anybody wants a mic, just let me know. James, I gave you one. We haven't talked in a while.
No.
Where you been?
I call, I
You
write,
hide?
I send carrier pigeons.
Where you been?
Hey,
You're
by the
not
way,
even
I'm coming to the East Coast in September.
East Coast. Yeah, come.
So Boston, my wife wants to go up to Maine, and so we're going to spend 2 weeks over there putzing around. So I don't know how far you are from Boston, but
yeah, it's not far. It's not far. You let me know when you're going, and we'll set something up. I'll come hang with you and your wife. I'll bring my kid, my son with me. Hey, Coco, how are you, honey? I'll show you around Jersey.
Oh, hi, darling. Hi, everybody in here. I'm just going to sit as listener, kid. I've got a very sore throat, scratchy throat today.
Oh no, feel
And
better,
so,
honey.
thank you. So I'll just drop down now and give somebody else a go for the mic.
No problem. I think
Thank you.
no
get well,
problem.
Coco. I haven't seen you in a while either. Get well, young lady.
Thank you, darling. I think it's a bit
Yeah,
of
feel
shedding,
better.
actually. I went,
Oh,
I know, spent a lot of time in the car with my younger sister yesterday and came home feeling like I had malaria again. That was years ago that I had that, but yeah, something's going on. So I'm just going to sit and listen now. I won't use my voice.
feel better, sweetheart.
Thank you, darlings.
And take zinc. Try to take some zinc and knock it out early.
I got some. Thanks.
That's my trick.
You need all the minerals. They're your best friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's cool. James, just keep me posted. Where's
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Well,
Mott?
yeah, I will. I'm going to actually just make like a Twitter declaration. I'm like, hear ye, come one, come all. I'm heading to the coast. Join me in the fall.
Are you gonna hit New York or no?
You know, New York's overrated. Been there, although I
It
have some
definitely is.
clients and stuff. But the plan is to go from Boston up, and then also to hit New Jersey because Renee went to school in Randolph, and she wants to take me to her high school and stuff. And I've never seen it, so we'll be dragging the happy little dog in tow. It'll be the three of us, and it's just rolling through and spend a couple weeks. It's not as far a drive as I thought. So when I told him, like, well, you got to make sure I get a space to sleep as your chauffeur. I can't be driving like days on end and I'll become crabby and it's not fun for anybody.
I didn't know that your wife is from Randolph.
She went to,
Awesome.
she was in high school, ninth to senior year, Randolph. She was born in Dayton, Ohio, but then her parents moved to Randolph, New Jersey, her ninth grade year, which would have been 89, 4, 5, like 85, 84, 85, somewhere in there.
So she didn't catch the terrible accent, did she?
No. The Midwest held strong, groomed her of anything Jersey. She's no
Give
Jersey.
me accent.
Yeah, no
Accent.
Jersey sounds, but she does though have very much the East Coast attitudes. I told her, I'm like, you want to claim Midwest? We love you, but you're not Midwest. She's like, what do you mean? I go,
Joyzy.
I go, I'm just saying, you're East Coast girl. So she's working for this one company, and they're all from the East Coast, Maryland and stuff. And she's just cracking up with them and having a good time. I said, see, those are your people now. You've sold us out. You're no longer a Midwesterner. She's like, I've lived in Michigan longer than anywhere else. I go, I don't care. Sorry. You're East Coast.
That's great. I love it. I didn't know that. That's super cool. Hi, Ludwig. Hi, John. Tell me if I'm doing this correctly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Sorry I'm late. I was on a phone call. It was a really good one. So anyways, I had to wrap that up quick, but ready to go.
Good afternoon, good midday, good morning, and
Good evening in Sweden.
And in the middle of the night, for our friends in Aussie, down under as well. All the 5 countries are here. Well, maybe not as many Canadians and New Zealanders as we would like to, but nevertheless, we are here. So, guys in the audience, please keep your hands and your feet inside this space wagon. Do not forget to grab your seat bar in the front of you, not the bar that the lawyers are passing, but grab it when the motion is steep ahead. Fasten your seat belts and be prepared to get tumble around mentally mostly, because we're gonna drop some real truth bombs here today. So please share, and you do that with using the purple pill, which is on your down right hand corner, and or if you are on the PC, you have this share button on top and on the 3 dots, depending on if you're on an iPhone or a Android device. And great, very grateful welcoming here to James, to John, to Carl Ludwig, which dropped in. I can't see him anymore. Let's get him up here because he is on the island in the middle of the Baltic Sea, or the Sea, you can also call it actually, where we have an unsinkable carrier, an island called Gotland. And the main city of that island is Visby, and this is the Visby where the Admiralty law origins from, Viking style, a long time ago. Believe it or not, but that's the way it is.
We got him back, Mom.
Ripley's, believe it or not. Love that place.
Yeah, I love that phrase as well. And of course, we have James with us. Hopefully, maybe Rob will show up later on, because they are the sword masters of the Admiralty law. John, of course, is the master of the legal side of it, how it works in the US of A, the adaptation of it, the use of it, the nefarious use of it. But we're going to give the historical perspective first. And we have our dear friend Ludwig, which actually are right now in the pirate city almost. Well, they have a pirate camp, young guys and girls, pirate camping. We have kind of an event week where let's say the establishment is there and doing some short interviews and throwing out their ordinary bullshit, and then they do alcohol and drugs in the evenings. And our ears and eyes in place is a young man who have so much knowledge, energy, and drive. So guys, if you don't follow Ludwig, you will find his videos. When you get to know him, you will find these amazing videos he's posting on his timeline, which is short and swiftly goes into the real deep things. He is the representative for the young generation. Maybe he's the future president of the Republic of Sweden. Who knows? That is something that I wish from the bottom of my heart. Welcome, Ludwig.
Do a test, Ludwig. Make sure we got you good. You got your mic?
Let's
John
see if
John will be right back. He's got to reboot and reconnect.
Yeah, good. So James, how is it? I've been listening to your spaces or the spaces that you are in. I love the Marlin spaces and so on. I listen to them sometimes, just hanging around as listeners, and sometimes I feel that I have to speak a little bit. But you are doing a great work. You are spending lots of time and energy, James, and on this, and on the educational side, on the enlightenment side, and I'm forever grateful for everything you do. And if you are in the audience, James' pinned tweet is about the best 15-20 minutes you can spend trying to understand the structure of, I said this many times before, I don't share it as much as I should, but please guys, go in, follow James. After this space, go to his pin tweet. You will find probably some of the stuff that you need to comprehend and recognize. And we will be talking about it today as well. We can see that Carl Ludwig have some connection problems. I think that is a little bit of a shame, but we get him up. So he's our ears and eyes. He is, working at these parties and so on. So he's doing great. He's a very driven young man.
So Ludwig has a YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, or he posts mainly on X. He uses the X, but he will show up on. We will actually be doing a YouTube together with a young gentleman called Eld Talk, Fire Talk, or Talk Around the Fire. We did one some days ago, me and Eld Talk, and now we're gonna do one together with Carl Ludwig, and we do them in English. Well, Swinglish then, but anyway, as good as we can. But with a good tempo, and same subject as we talk about here, of course, but also the younger generation's perspectives and questions and answers and so on. So I need to speed up my sometimes a little bit slow talking and so on. So I'm going on warp speed on those and trying to shoot a little bit more from the hip, and maybe that catches the young generation in a better way. They are more up tempo than us old boomers, so to speak. So, anyways, he is on the island of Gotland, as I said. We will get back to him when he gets up. So, on this island, there is a trade city that is one of the Hansa cities. The Hansa is something that, it's an alliance of city-states, which is based on trade. And, of course, they have the quarrels and so on. It starts somewhere around 900. You can see the first things happening around year 1000, developing. And then it's full speed ahead in the 1100th century, 1200th century. And here, the law that these Hansa cities, they will grow to be 150 even more cities all over, especially around the Baltic Sea, what today is Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Germany, and of course the UK and so on. And even down they had sort of their cities, or even down to the Mediterranean and so on. They had representation in Venice, in Constantinople, and so on and so on. So these are the oligarchy, the trade oligarchy at that point in time. But the rest of Europe is pretty rural. It's just farming land, forest, and you have small kingdoms and such a thing spread out all over. The Vikings have already, getting the, let's say, control over the waterways through their activities. You have, as said, with Mr. Putin, Rörik and these guys, the Dnieper River down to the on the east side in today's Russia/Ukraine. And of course, that river goes through the Baltic state as well. So, and they are down in the Mediterranean as well. These surroundings, we have the Longobards that have been in Italy for quite a while at this time, but they're still around there. Venice banking, the bank, the bench. The word for bank is from Tisha's ancestry. So, in this moment in time, they have to regulate between these cities so they don't get into constant fighting about payments and so on, and what kind of relate. So here they simply adopt more or less the old Viking law, naturally enough, since they were pretty much in control, and that will be used as the seafarer law, or the law of the sea in this case, which will be the Admiralty law later on. So this is the first shaping of it, and it, in this shape and form in the beginning, it includes this little thing with minting money. It is included because it's commerce. So the way to make and value different manufacture money, but in this case, money is metal or natural resources. So they have to, it's a tangible item, but nevertheless they have to regulate this. So we have a form of banking, of course, developed during this time, but the Admiralty law will follow and develop together with these city-states. And then after Sweden, with the king and Axel Oxenstierna, they sort of goes down in Europe in the early 1700th century. And in 1648, we have the Peace of Westphalia, which is the, let's call it a treaty, but it's more or less Axel Oxenstierna, the rock star of central banking, that is dictating how this will be for the banking families, for the city-states, and so on. And the Hansa is retracting because the East India Company is evolving at this time. They start their business at the year of 1600.
Hey, Matt, real quick.
Yep.
Just to interject, so it almost as if it's like under the cloak of secrecy. It's on face value seen to be a treaty, but really it's a secret agenda, correct?
Yes. It is the agenda for Axel to grab the powers of that controlled the money in this, in Europe. That was what he was going after. This is a long war. It's a 30-year long war. And the Swedes are doing, they are very successful on the battlefield because that the military industrial complex is growing at the same time. And the very creative weaponry manufacturers in Sweden are making lightweight cannons, which is so essential for the East India Company, so they can have these very, very powerful battleships. So they have they are already forming the military industrial complex. The East India Company have their own wharves, their own educations, their own officers, their own accountants, and everything at this point in time. But they do not actually mint the money. This has not happened yet. So after the treaty in Westphalia, 1648, we just warp speed to 1666. That's the end of the Hansa, when their London business just goes boom. But they were, as I said, retracting. They due to the Swedes and due to also the East India Company. And at this moment in time, what we live in now, this is not so long ago, actually. It's not so long ago. The national states with the borders are shaped. Prior to that, there were no borders. And as sure as hell were no social security numbers. And as sure as hell were no banks that could, do whatever they like to people. That was not the case.
And Mott, also in year 1666 was when the Queen had set up the first post on the Americas. So that's really important, because the post, like you said, in a borderless area, the post was crucial.
Yep. Taking control over the post and the banks. And the post will be sort of the bank as well. So there will be an era where you actually have the names of the banking services just down to the postal officers, which is quite strange. Then it's very important of who owns and controls the postal officers. I can tell you a strange thing from Sweden, but that comes later on in history, so we can leave it there. But when you grab a bottle of Absolute vodka, you will see a gentleman stamped into that. He fought for the people, believe it or not. He was an oligarch, but he was also a farmer's son. We will get to him. His name was L.O. Smith, but that's a little bit later on in time. Many things have changed until we get there, but that was the last time we had a good fight for the
Rob is here. Welcome, Rob.
Oh, Rob. Hi, Rob. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Sorry I'm running a little bit late. I'm going to have to go on mute for about 5 minutes, but then I'll be able to join. I'll be listening, but then I'll be able to join back in.
Yeah. You actually missed some crucial parts here, Rob. So we will do a quick recap when you are getting the mic later on. But you are so very welcome, sir, and just hang in there, and we will be rambling on for a little bit. So, 1666. We can say that's the marker of the end of the Hansa. So something has to happen, and it did. The world's first central bank. Boom! 1668, the rock star of central banking, the true rock star of that nefarious business. He is gone, but they place by his order, his design, they place the first central bank of the world in his house, his residential big building in Stockholm. And prior to that, they actually tried out to Palmstruch, some other players here. They tried out the fiat currencies, but they as a test run, not connected to this bank that emerges out of that test run. That was another bank, but they scrapped that bank, and bang, they make the first central bank. And just a breath later on, in 1670, Charles II will grant, that's the king of England at that time, as we say, the Viking crown. He's not really, he's just the bloodline changes a little bit there, so he's just a quarter Viking or whatever, but he has his Danish Viking wife and the ordinary stuff, what they always do. So he's part of the oligarchy. So he adds to the doctrine of discovery, which we can speak about a little bit later, that the East India Company already had. He adds the ability to mint money and therefore also create banks to these nefarious people. This is then growing into the world's largest military and naval force, and it's privately run, more or less like the military industrial complex does it today, But they have changed one thing. The nation states is sort of settled in our minds. So they are using the national states, the mindset of that, the thinking, the programming, the school, the everything, that affects us into to go to war for our nations. When in fact most of the wars, actually none of them really, have been for the nation. It has always been for the banking oligarchy and the military industrial complex. There's only one winner in wars, and that's the banks. Period. Full stop. So when they have this, the backbone structure, Oxenstierna's treaty in 1648, taking care of the banking, the wealthy families that were doing the banking in a bit unorganized banking as it was back then, but now taking over the Hansa structure, the Admiralty law, then this law goes to land. It will be on land as well, the Admiralty law. The French will rewrite it. There is another law that is used by the Spaniards and the Portuguese, which is pretty much the same, but that is written in Catalonia. It's still there. It's actually available. So that one is written a bit earlier, but the Hansa is still active. But this law that we are under now, that will come from the old Vikings of Visby, the Gotland, the unsinkable carrier in the Baltic Sea. This is adopted into to be the Admiralty law as out of France, and of course used by the East India Company, and also then applied, snuck into the United States through the back door, more or less, you could say. And all the founding fathers did. They for sure knew Oxenstierna, and they for sure knew the East India Company, and they for sure knew what the kind of constitution, what kind of republic they had to form to withstand, to stand up against these guys. And believe it or not, the following king from this, Gustav III, he's a hero of mine. He goes out of his way to make a revolution in Sweden to grab the power. The king didn't have the power. He knew that he didn't have the power, so he actually made a revolution. He took the power. He tried his best, and he was involved in lots of stuff. So, but he made an effort to overthrow the private banking at the same time and issue his own dollar, which is dollar, same word, Mordorian again. I will put an article around these namings and these different sort of currencies and so on. I will put it.
Hey, Matt, can I add something quick?
Yes.
So you mentioned withstanding, and that's really important too, because not only were they aware of what was going on in the people involved, but they needed to enshrine a way that the people actually had standing as well, and that was such a crucial implementation because it was a true break off of sorts from the Templar crown ruling and the hierarchy of the papacies of things and Roman control, and as well as just the crown itself.
Yeah. Changing the mindset by word magic of the brave people that, took the trip over the Atlantic, which was not the easy one back then. Brave people. But they also knew what were, they were not only brave, they were wise as well. They saw what Oxenstierna, the East India Company, where this was leading the central banking system. So at this point in time, if we just say 1617, when they are granted there are only two. Actually, there are only one central bank. It will take until 1694 before the Central Bank of England is formed, the Bank of England. And they placed that within the city of London for some kind of reason. So you could not really say it's the People's Bank, and it's for sure as hell not the King's Bank. It's the private company's bank. Full stop. And just as in Sweden. So now we have these two central banks. And one of them will be more or less the unipolar currency for quite a while, actually. That's worth thinking about. And not moving too fast forward. We are not in a rush here. There will be a few more banks connected to this, but not officially called central banks. But they will start to form under, well, say the hegemony between the Swedes. The Swiss are already, hanging around here. And this momentum and creating the banks wherever the East India Company goes, they will plant their banks. And this is within the Admiralty law. This is within the grant of doctrine of discovery. And of course, the grant that they received from Elizabeth I, that's the grant for them to start, their nefarious activities as a private military / banking company. That is what they are. They are a private military as in naval and on land banking company, because they also mint the money and sets the bank in these countries where they are. Some of those banks are still operational. And the Swedish central bank is for sure operational. That's the world's oldest bank, as a world's oldest central bank that still is operative as such. So this is a strange scenario we have here. And we will move it slowly up to the end of the East India Company. And this is 274 years, 1600 to 1874. They could not end it prior to hijacking the American Constitution and other things that they needed to do, which you guys I will not jump into that, in 1871. And there I go, full stop. I will crash my good old F-16 straight into the Monvik Castle, loaded with some stinky noble dynamite. And I will leave with warm hand and with grateful for having this speaker panel. So John, Rob, James, the floor is yours. I see Kiri down there as well. So please join the conversation, get your perspectives. I think that I managed to lay out a decent timeline for you guys to work with. So my crash is boom.
Beautiful as always, Matt. I just wanted to add for everybody, I put a digital copy of the Magna Carta in the purple pill. I'll throw that up in the nest right now. So back in 1215, this was a really, really crucial time of things too, because all the value, all the assets are derived from two things, I should say. The people. We are the intrinsic value, right? We are the workforce. We're the labor. We're the ones that make the things happen that need to be made and done. And all of the other tangible assets, like Matt was speaking to earlier, had to come from the land. And so even when we grow the necessities in order to survive, the shelter we're provided, everything comes from the land. So the land is the true value, and it's always been a land grab. And this was kind of a dealing of sorts that took place in 1215, and the Magna Carta stemmed from that as well. Changing and adapting into laws, which would be then in canic law, to all of the things leading up to where we're at today, and a commercialization in lockstep, obviously, with the East India Company, and essentially the idea of the people having the land was just not an option for them. They couldn't do it. They couldn't have it, and they had to be the holders of all of the pieces of paper, which controlled all the information. And then they controlled the narrative, which would then be controlling the people. So you can see where they've been using these deceptive manipulation tactics by watching us behind the scenes the whole entire time, going back to 1215. I mean, and it goes back further, yes, of course. I'm just giving an inception point with something that people are familiar with, such as the Magna Carta. But the laws that were enacted were for a commercial construct, essentially, which everything is under now. I'm going to land it there, but I just wanted to let everybody know I have that available for them.
So when you brought up the Magna Carta, I'll add. So my pin post stretches to the Magna Carta and then rolls forward, goes through the Vatican's acquisition of the British Crown all the way through, rolls us all the way up through the Civil War, all the way into 60, 55, somewhere near 60, and then it stops. So what you guys can do, you can want to go all the way through, you can follow it from the Magna Carta, where John posted that, because the people got so mad, the king's like, okay, pipe down. I'll make this agreement with you. I'll do this, it's fine. Now, no real intention to truly honor a lot of it, but they did do that, right, to try to appease the people, because the people had enough, and they realized that we're just a few, and there's a bunch of the people, and a bunch of the people might overrun all of us, so we should throw them some stuff so they don't actually kill everybody, including our children, right? And that's the part in America we've forgotten, is that we outnumber the elites, the elected, the whoever you want to call them, 10,000, maybe 150,000 to 1. And once we start to understand that, and we get our stones up off the floor and put them back on ourselves, then we can stand up like we the people and start getting this stuff squared out and quit begging to God above and some magnificent, or the beneficial whatever person come step in, say, I am benevolent ruler for you. I shall make all your decisions. I may be orange, but it's my tanning that I rub on. Don't be mad at me. My hair is nice, don't you think, for a guy my age? Like all that stuff, and putting it all on his shoulders, which we shouldn't. If we're to rule this country and have the authority that we wish to have in this country, then we have an obligation, each and every one of us, to step forward in this country and assert our place in every township, in every city, in every village, in every place that we live, coast to coast, from the sea to shining sea. And if we don't do that, then we don't deserve this country. And we deserve to be overrun by a bunch of rulers that care not what we do, care not what our concerns are. Because if you do not do that, then it's like being an adult and a child. If you're a child, you're like, hey, Dad, can I do this today? No. Oh, no. Or you're an adult, I'm going to do this today because I'm an adult. And that's the difference between a minor and a major, meaning that you think like you're an adult or you're a minor, and you ask the government to take care of you and wipe your nose and tell you what meals you can eat, and create an agency that tells you when you can go have dinner and what are the proper meals to eat when you do that. Because remember, like I said, we outnumber them hundreds of thousands to 1. So do they want us to be millions to 1? No. Tens of millions to 1? No. They want none of that. So how better else to corral the crowd than to tell us the things that will poison ourselves? That's all the things we've known and seen over our lifetimes, all of us in here. There might be some 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds up in this space, and they are. Thank you, youth. Please grab the torch and run with it. But most of us are in our 40s and 50s and things like that. So we've seen a few things. So back to the money system. 1913, when the beast was born, finally, and it set its roots in this country. Prior to that, they attempted many times. But 1913, that was when they finally were able to plant their tentacles into this country, From that point forward, things will start to when I say drastically change, it will be over decades, right? So over decades, these changes will start to happen. So that by the time you got to the 70s, they've had what now? 1913, they have 60 years. So 3 generations of change. That's a powerful thing, right? 3 generations of change, you can affect a lot into the culture of a country. And that's why a lot of people don't even understand our banking system today. Because now that was the 70s. Now you got another 2 more generations. So 70, 1990, 2010, 2 more generations, right? 20 now, almost 3 arguably, more past that have been indoctrinated to the way this is the way banking works. The beast has had a long time to have its roost. So on that note, I mean, unless you got other questions or Rob wants to walk in and like take another stroll or whatever else you want to ask. On that note, I'll go back to my UFO and hover.
I want to add one other part too to what James was speaking, and well said, by the way. We're seeing multiple elements to this, and the term religion comes up a lot. And I want everybody to think about something, because word magic, like Mott said before, how do you control the people? How do you indoctrinate the people? How do you control the narrative? People are looking to think that the Bible, the written scripture, was changed, and then they're looking to other forms, but they're not applying how they were used in a law context. We need to simplify it, bring it back to what law is: land, air, water, right? In an acronym form. But these are things that is universally accepted in the laws of nature, the laws of man, as in mankind, that every man and woman born, not birthed, born, is of need of these. Without one will perish. And so any trespass on one of those is a trespass on us, on our life, on our ability to exist. And so in this indoctrination inception point of 1215, another thing that took place, which is very important, is this religious context. Because of the pagan nature and the evil inherent rooted cause of a lot of the capturing of the things on this earth. And so part of that was this, I guess you could call it the deal that was struck with King John. And the elements that took part in that, because then religion essentially became something. So it went from the Roman Church to what we now know as Roman Catholicism, or the Roman Catholic Church. I'm not saying faith is the same, okay? And this is where we need to be mindful, at least. Everybody has a right to their own faith and their beliefs, and how they get there is their pathway. Great, do you, boo. I don't care. I am not your judge. I'm not here to say anything. I'm just giving educational bits. And what did take place was that there was a conversion, an amalgamation of sorts, just like they did with language, with the Christian Crusades, let's just say, and the followers of Christ, as opposed to the prior Roman Church and its construct of pagan roots. And so those blended. And if you were to put face value context, you could kind of look at the Vatican right now and say that would be kind of the difference between the Jesuit and their role that they play, and the office of the Pope. And right now, a prime example, there's no seated Pope. He's a Jesuit, and he was installed, and he just happens to be wearing some white garb with some pedophilic memorabilia on there. So there's a lot of tomfoolery going on, but it was important, right? It is important to take that into context, because it does play out at this very moment in time that we're speaking. And then one other thing I'll add and land here is, James, you brought up the fact of, the permission need, that everybody is so deeply enthralled with the fact that they need to ask permission all the time. And I get it. I was heavily at one time too, until I learned what I needed to learn to say, oh, hell no. And I broke free. I couldn't run fast enough, because I didn't know at the time what I know now, but I still need to know more, right? and we're never going to have the amount of wisdom that's possible and capable of the entire existence, but that's where all of us come together in this brilliant, magnificent plan that nobody has been able to single-handedly do, but yet perform naturally, right? It's all happening because it's supposed to. It was by divine design. And so these elements are coming forward. These things are taking place. The historical elements are so important. We need to know the truth. And the truth is the biggest part of that. And in that is the truth of the matter of how they like to put things in front of the origins. So, for instance, using the term sovereign citizen, you can't do that. Okay. State sovereignty is not sovereign. If you look to the fact of what things are, it can only be what they are. If you have an attachment to that, it diminishes that. So that's what they did with us. And they took away and they removed the sovereignty, one tiny little fractional element through the fractional reserve bank, of course, in part. And they had the usurpation that we're seeing now. That's been a stronghold that's been going on for eons and eons. So it's important to just know how to make our employees work for us. Listen, I'll be damned if I'm going to let my servants I'm going to ask my servants for permission any longer. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I appreciate your work that you do, but, can you do this for me now, please? And I'm asking them in a question form, not permission, but I'm asking them to do the job that they're bound to do because that's what they, agreed to do in that position. So I'll land her there. Go ahead.
Let's make sure we stay in the finance space, not wander down that too much, because people came here to follow the banking space,
Yeah, no. It's the stronghold, right, James? I mean, that's why. How do you control the people?
I know. It's all interwoven. Politics, law, finance, it's like a menage a trois, seriously. All three are interrelated. And that's why you'll find a lot of finance guys going to law or politics or both. It's just, they're all bedmates for sure. Hey, Rob, come on up, buddy.
Man, I want to thank you guys. I'm so grateful for what you're talking about. And if we can just keep this going for about 14 more hours, I'd be really happy. That'd be awesome. And then we'd just be getting warmed up. But I don't even know where to start, but I will start with the just affirmation of what a lot of the things I've heard already. One is it's a narrative war, and it has always been a narrative war. From the beginning of mankind to 2,000 years ago in the Bible to why Christ even came in the first place to try to get our heads on straight, why the system had to kill him because he was screwing up their rigged game, to the narrative that was written down, but most people don't understand it at all. One of the concepts I'd like to just float out there for open discussion is if you think about the word religion, think about how close that word is to religion. How about if you were to be able to lead the dog off the trail, take them off the scent, pervert faith and call it religion, and get officially licensed, chartered, state-sanctioned priests or ministers with a license to go and get all kinds of benefits like tax-free revenue if they say the right things and they don't say the wrong things. And then you get people to join like sheep and you sell memberships and you can get 10% of their life earnings through tithing and donations. And all you've got to do is keep the narrative alive that heaven's up there somewhere and hell's down there somewhere, and they need to pray for their government elected leaders and just follow the rules. Be a good citizen, follow the rules, and then you'll earn a ticket to the pearly gates. I mean, there's such a failure of organized or corporatized religion. And I do want to make the perfect distinction that faith and religion don't have anything to do with one another. They don't. And I have a strong faith, but There's no authority in membership. There's no authority in how many years I've been going to a church or how much I've donated. There is no authority in that. That's no different than me going to a golf club and being a member of a golf club for 30 years and paying hellacious dues every year. That doesn't give me any authority. It just makes me a member. Christ didn't come to start a religion. He just didn't. He came basically to point out fascism in the world, lies and deception. And the fascism he pointed out was the merger of the state, the money changers, and the politicians. Those were the three things that he used as allegorical examples the most to say, basically, if you don't understand law and who you are and whose you are, what your agency is, what our power is, what our standing is, and what our authority is, like a thief in the night, these bastards are going to come and steal it from you. And if you're too stupid to hear what I'm trying to tell you guys, that you were born whole, you were born complete, you have authority, you have standing, your constitution was built into your DNA, you were designed for purpose to live in abundance with sovereignty, to manage with God on your own, to your own desires, needs, and whims, as long as you don't hurt, kill, or destroy other people. Live and let live. But you were put here for a purpose. The system has been designed to invert all of that, make us stupid, make us dependent, make us ignorant, make us completely unaware of what our laws are, what our standing is. And money is the system that does that. They even knew back then, 2,000 years ago, the love of money is the root of all evil. Because money leads you to buying stuff, and then we invest our happiness or our hopes or our desires in stuff instead of the principles that are part of our DNA, that are part of our essence. And if we misplace our identity in stuff or titles or fame or fortune or wealth or whatever, every little perceived threat that comes after our happiness or our identity, which is my reputation in the community or my Lamborghinis in the garage or my 4 houses or whatever, my bank account. All they got to do is come at us then with another manufactured, invented deception, lawfare, a needle, LGBTQ, fly this flag or you're homophobic. Whatever the case may be, those that invent the money system invented the money system for the purposes of deception, control, manipulation, all of those things that have led us to this military-industrial complex slave state that we live in today. And the only way it keeps going is to keep people stupid, distracted, divided, sick, ignorant, unaware of money, what money is and what value is and who we are and why the hell we're even here in why the hell are we even on this damn rock in the first place? How many people are not even in the school systems in America today? We can't even talk about civics. They don't do debate anymore. They don't study Latin. We don't talk about values. We don't revere the founders. We don't study the Declaration of Independence and where it originated from and why these guys wrote the words the way they wrote. In fact, they're trying to make kids not even understand how to write in cursive or read cursive. Well, that's mighty convenient for the deep state, isn't it? So I think the key issue, the timelines are fascinating. How they did what they did is fascinating. We know that these are liars, crooks, thieves, and bastards that have consolidated 90% of the world's wealth into 2% of the population's hands, or less than 2%, however many it is. But they've done it through lies, deception, and ignorance. And their manufactured monetary system that can only operate in secrecy, which means no transparency and no accountability. They cannot pull off their Wizard of Oz, scare the shit out of people on a 24/7 basis, put us all into a slave state of mind with fear, 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 if we had perfect transparency and we could hold them perfectly accountable to where all of our value, which is converted or into currency, actually is routed, how it's spent, who gets it, what offshore bank accounts it's in, who's paying who's doing what behaviors are being subsidized, how's the money being used and weaponized against us to destroy our awareness of our innate standing. None of this can continue with a fully transparent, accountable money system that tracks everything of value to the penny 24/7 3. Now, doesn't mean that we don't have to also start the re-education process, the reawakening. We have to take our education system back. We have to take our media system back. We have to take our monetary system back. We have to take our medical system back. We have to take everything back that has been stolen, hijacked, and perverted in order for this system that has been built on this ungodly sand that is collapsing before our eyes. I mean, we have to first, it's like the old analogy. If your house is flooding and it is soaking wet because the pipes are burst, you don't start remodeling all the rooms in the house until you first stop the damn leak. Stop the water from gushing into the house. Fix the main problem first. In our instance, it's the monetary system that incentivizes 24/7 warfare and lawfare against all of us. We've got to first stop that flood of that's contaminating our world. Then we can go about repairing and reconstituting, rebuilding all the rooms and putting in the fresh walls and the fresh carpet. But we'll do it based on an open, fair, transparent system of value that everyone can see when the power structure is recalibrated and redistributed back on the bottom up level instead of on a top down basis. So I just think our work is so cut out for us. We just got to become educators in our local communities, and we got to help people understand what's been done to us.
That's it. We have to get local and teach these people. Spaces are a good start, but we have to do that. Otherwise, there's no hope. You can't expect to be top down. It's just there's too many people. Too many people they have no idea. They don't even have like a preschool level of knowledge. They just don't. And they've been so indoctrinated to the madness, and they believe that is the path. Like when I tell people I'm 10 years without paying income tax, they look at me like I stabbed my sister in her left leg and waiting to stab her in the right. And I'm like, well, you don't know what you don't know. It ain't my problem. You should learn. You should become learned. Your ignorance is not my excuse. And that's the thing we have to do. We have to teach people that stuff so they can get over their fear. So much fear controls everyone. I don't mean to be like all up in a guy's host. Like, call out the hand. Sorry, I'll be quiet. I'm so used to running spaces. I'm like going in like space management mode. So go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, James. Kelly, go ahead.
Right on. One thing y'all might want to consider, and I'm not telling you what to do, but most likely I am one of those people that's too stupid to catch everything you say. And when I hear that, it kind of shuts me down a little bit. So, calling people stupid and calling people too indoctrinated and too ignorant probably isn't the best way to get your message embraced by these same people we're hoping to enlighten some and to reinvigorate and to spur on to reinvigoration of our laws and our society. That's just my opinion. I did want to share with y'all something, a little ditty from 1531. A guy named Machiavelli, I believe, who's writing about the discourses on the first 10 books of Titus Livius. And it's the second book, chapter 8. I put it in the bubble. It says, to usurp supreme and absolute authority in a free state and subject it to tyranny, the people must have already become corrupt by gradual steps from generation to generation, and all states necessarily come to this unless they are frequently reinvigorated by good examples and brought back by good laws to their first principles. I'll hang that up there. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Kiri. Well spoken, and Machiavelli is well worth a read. I checked it out. The post is up there, so good content there. Thank you so very much for that. So,
Oh, and it's in cursive also for sentimental purposes. I wrote it in cursive.
yeah, it's in cursive, so we can read it. But yeah, no problems with that. But
Come on, Vivian has her hand up. Vivian?
I just want to go back to one thing that James was speaking about before. So the beast, meaning the Fed, it is a beast. Consider this: Fed had to emerge, but for the Fed to emerge, the Titanic/Olympic had to submerge. This is the kind of moves that are being done, and of course, the 1871 has had to happen as well. At the point when the Fed is up and running, decided, but just up and running, no more than that, we enter the First World War. At this point in time, hold on your carriage now in this space. Keep your hands and feet inside. We have only 23 central banks in the world, and they are not really connected, but they are in play. Well, they are connected, but they are not working as smoothly together and so on as you would wish. But they are depending on, of course, on the pound sterling. We have the Rothschilds actively there, and of course we have the plan is already set for the First World War, and the outcome of the First World War is pretty much decided as well. Sometimes these things will, go sideways even for the oligarchs, but in this case, they will win anyway, anyhow, any sort of outcome, because the result that will be of the First World War is the Bank for International Settlements. That will come almost regardless of the outcome, and that is the book that these guys can play. So this will be in place 1929 with a very hidden hand that you will learn more about. His name is Per Jacobson, and he's the result of the Wallenberg family and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. All of these bankers they are involved very, very much after the First World War, keeping Germany down and getting all of these things in place for the Bank for International Settlements. That's the goal they have. The central banks that are already up and running, it's not so many, but they start to pop up now when the First World War is ended. Then there will be a full swing in this. So in 1929, this is up and running, and that is a very crucial date. And therefore, there will be so many things happening in 1932, 1933, which we will get to later on. So sorry, Vivian, for waiting. I just wanted to shim that in.
You left out the Odyssey sinking, or Olympian, or whatever it's called. Not the Titanic. What was the name of it? But that sinking was so important before the war. Remember, because they sunk the boat of all the opposition.
Yep.
All the opposition got sunk in the ocean. Yep. Red money.
And of course then the Lithuania as well, you know, so they do things like that. These days is mainly airplane crashes and other things. You know, people don't travel that much by boat anymore, at least not this, you know, the people at the deep state actors might want to, you know, get rid of for some reason. So it is a very, very crucial moment, and as many of us actually could comprehend or could see, that there are a constant range of different false flag operations. The First World War, the start of that one, it's a mind's game, more or less. That, you know, we have some interesting stories around the Serb and what happened there to kick that one off. I don't think that it's details important enough. Really good information and stories to describe what happened, but taking the helicopter view, or actually the eagle's view, or the satellite view on this to move us forward, I don't want to dig in too much to the details. And Vivian, sorry for letting you wait there, but I thought I needed to go for the Fed there. So the number is 23. There are not so many of them, but it will grow in a tremendous pace from there. So, Vivian, welcome.
Thank you, Mott. You can interrupt anytime. Always learn so much from you. There's so many brilliant minds in here. I'm just so honored. Thank you for giving me a mic, Tish, and I love you all so much. And I want to, you know, I'm still learning about all of these cabals that are going on with our banking system, and I've learned so much just being in spaces, because you'd never learn this from your neighbor or anybody, because nobody has ever taught this stuff, right? So I want to ask you, I saw something today where JP Morgan Chase said they passed the stress test, and then that many other banks have passed a stress test. And I'm just wondering, well, what the hell is this stress test, and how do they declare themselves, you know, being, you know, having passed it? So I want to understand that, because I feel like that is another kind of like psyop that they're trying to do, trying to convince us that, you know, that they're okay. You know, am I stupid? Is that a stupid question? I'm sorry for that.
Not at all. We have Creditor up on the stage too. Welcome, Creditor.
Hey, Tish. You're very brave holding a space like this. Many call this a psyop, and I believe we all know this is true and needed to be talked about, because the more people know about our financial system and the Admiralty, Law Merchant, Lex Mercatoria Corporation, all of that, the better we all are. And it all goes to what James was talking about, self-governance and being responsible and taking responsibility for what we should have been doing this whole time that we haven't. And that's the first step. And once we do, then like everybody else is saying, John and Rob, we just move forward. And I don't know if anybody knows what that means, but it's got to be us. It is going to be us. It has to be us. Nobody's coming to save us. So, like you said, more spaces need to be had like this. People need to be brave and talk about this subject. We're you know, I'd like to think some of us are knowledgeable on this topic. You've got some what I consider experts on this topic in here right now. So, but we all have a lot more to learn, and we got to learn each other and offer forgiveness and work together. And everybody always says work together and we need to come together. That's not easy. It's not easy, because do you bend your principles? Because, I think some of us, if you ended up in this room, I think you're different. I think you have a foundation. I think you have a strong foundation built upon rock, whereas others are sliding around on sand. I'm going to be honest. And so I don't think you necessarily, we need to meet people where they are, but don't give too much. And I know James is an expert on this topic, and I defer to him.
James, jump in.
First of all, Critter, my boy, thanks for having my back. Appreciate you, Big Tex. Let me touch with Vivian's things really quick. So, Vivian, understand this. Anything you hear come out of the big banks now, it's just reassurance. I'm going to give you the short and skinny on it. They have about $12.6 trillion in obligations. And until recently, that hack that happened, they had $135 billion to cover their obligations. So now you ask yourself, I got my money deposited in the banks. I'm safe. I got FDIC insurance. I'm good. Well, hold on. 12 trillion. Let's do some basic third grade math. 100. Let's drop all the zeros. Let's just put 1,200 into 135. Let's do that. How much do I have to spread amongst everybody else? And by the way, I have 99 years to repay that. That's why they say the things they do to keep you keeping faith in that private bank. And I tell all of you in here, 28 years of financial industry, a degree in economics, one in finance, worked as an executive vice president, managed $250 million. Like, I'm the dude in the space of money management. And I'm going to tell you now, if you're in a bank, private bank, FDIC insured, whatever pain train shows up at your door, you've deserved it. Because I've been yelling this in these spaces for a year. I got 6,000 people follow me, and I know they've told others. If you're not in a credit union backed by the National Credit Union Association, which answers to the U.S. Treasury, then all the pain train that shows up at your door because you're lazy, you ignored me, you did whatever, you brought it on yourself. So I'm going to tell you now, under the Dobbs Act, they are allowed to do what they call a buy-in. That means, hey, I'm insolvent. The FDIC says, well, we ain't got more money to give you. You got to solve everybody else behind us. Make sure you take care of your top lenders because we want you to keep lending to them. So they go back to you, little bitty depositor, and say, hey, by the way, we need to confiscate your money, but congratulations, we're giving some shares worth 37 cents each. Oh, wait a minute, I need that money for groceries. Yeah, but you have these 37-cent shares. Yeah, but I need groceries. No, we took your money so we could buy you into our bank. Well, I didn't ask to do that. Well, I know, but you became a member of our bank. Did you understand the Frank Dodd Act? You don't know? Well, that's the way it works. So now you're bought in. Congratulations, welcome, shareholder. We're glad to have you. 37 cents a share? Yeah. But I had $10,000. I know. But you have all these shares now. No. I got to feed my kids. Can I sell the shares? No, they're restricted. That's part of the Frank Dodd Act, too. We restrict them because I can't have you going back out and selling them right away. What's the point of me buying you in? There's no point in that. So we're not going to do that. So just know that we really appreciative that you become part of an investor in our bank. We really love that. Thank you. But we can't help you any more than that right now. That's the bank. That's the bank you're in. That's your world you're in. So you figure out what works for you. But I'm going to tell you, any client of mine that's worth their druthers have already been gone and moved on because that pain train is going to show up. How it shows up at your bank or not, I don't know. Because if I knew which bank was going to go totally, quote unquote, shit the bed, I'd be able to help people steer specifically clear, but they're all suspect. The Fed came out and said that they have 68 banking corporations that are all insolvent, and they did that just 2 weeks ago. Put in a big article. They didn't tell you who. Again, remember, they don't want you to know either because they don't want you to go run on the bank. So they didn't tell you. They just said we have 68 of them that are all broke, insolvent. That could be one of yours. So please.
Yeah. And James, per 11th of March, I think actually, if I remember correctly, let's call it the emergency room pushing out trillions of dollars to keep the banks running closed.
Yeah,
And
31st,
now we can
31st
see
of
the
March,
pain.
Ma. Yes, you're correct. 31st of
Yeah,
March, it all ended. That's correct.
yeah, yeah. So and now we can see the pain of it. So Vivian, your question was brilliant because this is that they are in a sort of a panic mode now, I
So
would say.
I'll add piggyback one more to that. So I'll tell you guys one other thing. So a bank makes money when it makes a loan. Sounds crazy, but that's how they make their money. Remember, they go back to Magic Fairyland, ask for $10, give them 30 cents, they get $10. Okay. So when they make money is when they make loans to you and you pay back interest. Is how they make money. Fine. Okay. So the FDI said, it used to say, hey, look, if you made $1 million loan, you show us you got $1 million loan, we'll count as $1 million. We don't really care if it's underwater. You said it's worth $1 million. We trust you. High five, bro. Banking legacy. What's
Yeah.
up? Banking fat. Yeah, we're good. We're good for life. All right. Well, then they turn around 31st of March. Like, yeah, well, we kind of don't trust you anymore. So here's the deal. You got to show us what it's worth in market value. Well, what do you mean? Well, if it's underwater, we need to know. And then we'll market accordingly and we're going to lend to you accordingly to that. Okay. So meanwhile, fast forward, there's 100 million loans underwater just on cars, not counting the commercial loans, not counting all the other stuff out there, just cars alone. How many car loans do you think there are in the United States? 100 million is already underwater. What's there, maybe 50 million more? Maybe? There are car loans out there. A lot of people own cars too. So that means I bet you 80% of the car loan market's underwater. So I get all these car loans and I go, okay, Fed, all these people in my lobby, and they want to borrow money or need money. I need money. The Fed's like, what do you got? He goes, well, I got 10 million in car loans. No, what you got to remember, you got to show me what it's really worth. Oh, well, 4 million of them have made payments in 90 days. And, I got 6 million that I can't reprice because the interest rate's 4% and the current rate's 7%. And so I got to discount those to have them at par. And you go through your whole book, and the Fed goes, well, your whole book's not worth 10 million. It's only worth like 6 million. And you've already borrowed 4 against it. I can't help you buy. That gets us back to our 60-something banking corporations underwater. Back to where we are.
Yeah. That is, well, we are in for epical times. We could easily say we are in for epical times. It's
Rob has his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Jump in, Rob.
Go ahead, Rob.
No, thanks, guys. I did want to circle back and reinforce the brilliant point that was made. And I know sometimes I get caught up in the enthusiasm and the passion. And when we're teaching and educating and talking on these topics, we almost have to, you know, don't even almost, we need to make sure that we first do no harm. And we have to understand that there are people that are listening or are going to listen to this recording from all walks of understanding and knowledge and study of finances and study of history and study of politics and study of how the media is perverted and even the scripture, basic law. So as we go about narrating these stories and explain how the Great Gatsby took place and how the big con has taken place through every civilization and every generation of mankind, you know, we're not unique. We're not different. This has happened to the Romans. It happened to, you know, the Greeks. It happened to the Spaniards. It happened everywhere in the world. This is over and over and over and over again. These lessons of falling asleep, getting lazy, seeking comfort, seeking pleasure, seeking bread and circuses, seeking somebody else to take care of us for us. All of those sort of things are, we're guilty of it, every one of us. But that which hurts instructs. So now we're at everyone's awake, everyone's hurting, the inflation is killing us all, the joblessness, the border invasions, the needless murders, the endless wars. We have finally, thank God, gotten to this critical tipping point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And now we're starting to ask questions that should have been asked a long time ago, should have been taught back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but they were slowly removed from the curriculum, slowly removed from the culture, slowly poisoned with the food supply, slowly poisoned with the medical system, all of it. These nefarious freaking bastards have done this not only to us in this day and time, but in various different iterations or various different forms to every generation before us. When we realize that we're not unique or special or detached from the laws of nature, we're not separate from, greater than, better than any other generation that ever lived before us. As a matter of fact, we have more challenges, probably just due to the advancements of technology, than most other generations may have had to deal with and grapple with. But what we thought oftentimes was a blessing turned out to be kind of a curse, because it made us less informed as to how we were being deceived, how they were weaponizing information, how they were dividing and conquering, how they were doing certain things faster behind the curtain than in the 1400s when they did things behind the curtains. I mean, they didn't have the computers, the technologies, and emails, and the algorithm, e-learning, and the artificial intelligence, and all the stuff they have now to accelerate their ability to deceive us and enslave us and poison us and ultimately depopulate us, because they understand the math. We outnumber them 100,000 to 1. They would probably like that to be like 1,000 to 1 instead of 100,000 to 1. So, how would we do that? How do we get rid of the useless eaters? I know. Food, drugs, medicine, war, abortion, LGBT, transgenderism, climate change. Scare everybody to not have children. Don't populate. Don't go out and be creative. Live in really tiny houses, and don't get married, because that's such a, that's male hierarchy kind of a structure. Don't go and do that. I mean, everything about these freaks is a lie. And if we as a society and as a culture aren't capable of teaching those first principles and giving our lives up in defense of and in honor of those first principles to the next generation, then that is probably our greatest sin. Now, do we have to teach them about money? Of course. Why? Because the money is what gives them the fueling source to do all their nefarious acts of evil and put us in the situation they've put us in. So if my people will first humble themselves and seek wisdom, I will answer their prayers. I will answer. I will
Heal their
show them
land.
the way. I will give them the strength and the power. I'll give them eyes to see. But the hardest thing that we have as humans is to find humility. We're egotistical, we're narcissistic, we're strong-headed, we're bullheaded. We know what we know, and we like what we like, and by God, shut up. And everybody wants to self-worship instead of worship first principles. And until we get that obstacle behind us, it really doesn't matter how much we know. It doesn't matter what we know. It'll help ourselves, but we can't scale what we know, and others aren't going to be able to get it and understand it and then change their behaviors and get their money out of the falling banks and stop eating the poison and stop going to the doctors and drinking all their chemicals or whatever it is, popping their pills. But none of that happens unless people want to know. And the best way we can get them to want to know is show them love and show them grace and show them kindness and compassion and mercy, seek to understand what's important to them, and then feed them the appropriate level of meal that they can actually ingest. We can't show up and throw up on them. We can't just, hey, how are you? I'm Rob. Have you heard about adrenochrome? I mean, that's not going to get you very far. That's not going to get any of us very far. And any person that we don't wake up or don't help advance towards the awakening, in my book, is a lost opportunity. So I'm kind of preaching to myself, but I just wanted to piggyback off of those very, very, very sage and wise words that a speaker 15 minutes ago talked about. We got to be careful about, as energetic as we are and as strong as we are with our knowledge, you know, ignorant does mean lack of knowledge. Doesn't mean stupid. But we have to realize, when I say that, my people are destroyed by their lack of knowledge or their ignorance, the average person is going to hear me calling them stupid. That's not what I was saying, because those words are two very different words. But, we have to be cautious of how we're heard, not necessarily what we say, but how others might hear us. And so, anyway, transferring, I'll leave it at this. Education is the transference of knowledge. Sales is the transference of a belief system from one person to another. So if a person believes that this car is going to bring them more value and joy than the money in their checking account, they'll transfer the checking account for the thing that they think is of more value, which is the car. So the transference of a belief system requires, most transactions take place between two people because like, trust, and value is exchanged. I know you, I like you, I trust you, and you're going to bring me value. I'll contract with you. I'll trade something called money for something called a car. Okay? If you don't have knowledge, understanding, if I don't know you, like you, and trust you, you're not babysitting my kids. We're not going to contract for you to come over and take care of my kids. I don't like you, but sure, manage my money. That's probably not going to happen. It's got all of those elements. I know you, I like you, and I trust you have to be in place before we can transfer knowledge or value to another person. If we come out of the gates guns blazing, all right, you dumb mother effers, you idiots, you're all, but sit down, I'm going to, and I've done it, I'm guilty as hell. We just have to be cautious that we want to wake up as many people as we can, and we'll attract more people with honey than we will with vinegar. So I'll just land it there.
Very wise words, Rob. Very wise words.
Thank you, Rob.
I'm going to piggyback very quickly on that. Think about this. We have now the technological opportunity to transfer all kinds of information. We for sure have, the database power, all of these tools that are available for us. And yet, you could actually say that people are more ignorant now than ever before. Well, than ever, I might not, maybe I exaggerate, but compared to the possibility of enlightenment through technology and so on, we are more ignorant now compared to any previous generation, going back thousands of years. So this is worth thinking about, and this is why it's so important that we learn from history. And I usually say that Tolkien wrote the instruction book of how to get rid of the nefarious banking system and the oligarchs behind it. He wrote it. That's the book. That is the instruction book, because the play and the players and how this is done, he knew it well. So all his metaphors are pinpointed in the time where he described this. And this is the very important time of the Second World War and the transfer of power through the dollar, through the Bretton Woods. And this is the second time US of A will be hit. You've been had with the Operation Paperclip, which is just a small part of it. So we have renamed it. We call it Operation Follow because the operation is so much bigger than just the paperclip narrative that is thought by let's call it the gatekeepers. Let's call them for what they are. They are gatekeepers. They are trying to keep the current system running. Of course, they have to provide truth, but they never provide a full picture. And this is why we are talking about, trying to see the full picture of it. And having these spaces where we go so very far back in time, we usually can talk about the Longobards that occupied or took over Italy and kept Rome and the Pope under siege for like 500 years. But some people, they just ignore that and think, well, that's just old history, it doesn't really matter. No, well, you can see that the modus operandi, you can see how they do it. And therefore, telling the saga, telling the story in a good way, as Rob said, better with honey than vinegar, is also then a proposal to the listener to make their own story, to have the courage to meet yourself in the mirror. It starts with the man in the mirror. I think that somebody actually made a good song on that once upon a time. Let's go to Laura. Laura, very welcome to the space.
Oh my goodness, you guys. God bless you for letting me speak. You guys are brilliant and knowledgeable, and I'm able to understand the way you're explaining it, which makes me very, very happy. I'm in a financial issue myself, and, one day I had it all, 6 figures, house on the beach. The next day I'm having a stroke and 3 surgeries later. I'm not complaining. I'm not any of that. But I am in an FDIC bank, and I heard her speaking so brilliantly on that. I'm in Ohio currently. I still have a house in Mississippi, but I don't want to go back there. It's pretty scary. Do you recommend something decent in Ohio that I can get into a credit union? And is it hard for them to let you in?
Oh my God, you just called me a she. I want to cry. Look at some hormone shots.
What did I
Laura,
do?
so
Wait a minute. Who did I call she?
me, it's okay. It's all good.
No,
I
I
do it.
didn't. I thought it was the lady. Yeah, there was a lady speaking on the financials. She said she was in that industry.
Like I said, it was me.
Well, son of a... I am so sorry. My apologies.
You're okay. It's all good. Anyway, yeah. Any credit union, long as it's, you can do state and or federal chartered. You just want to make sure it says NCUA, insured by. That's all you need to do. Any credit union in your backyard. Yep, NCUA.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
God bless
Okay.
you for that. And
Yeah,
Rob,
no
that was
worries.
just brilliant. Yeah. I'm really disturbed about the Supreme Court decision Wednesday.
Don't be.
No.
Don't be. No, here's why. So there's Operation Mockingbird under the Smith-Moot Act was changed in 2000, and when it was Barack Obama changed it, 2010. Right? Okay. This is just matching that. What you're going to see is a lot of parity to laws that didn't align over the next couple of years because as a republic, the Supreme Court's got to align a lot of things that are disjointed as we move forward. Trump said he's going to give us, his administration is not a normal administration and was going to return the power to the people. Power of the people means the republic, okay? So if you're going to return a republic, each state has the ultimate power. Federal government's really, 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 really tiny. Doesn't have any teeth. It's gum. It's like it's just going to gum its food, put everything in a blender because that's all it's going to eat. Okay, and it's not that big monster that used to be. And if you look at the best rule to remember is EPA versus West Virginia from Supreme Court, and that went back to laws passed 1871. They went all the way back to a public act. No other laws prior to 1933 of that bankruptcy, there are or judge rulings or whatever, where they didn't go past 33. Well, they went all the way back before 1871 to bring that forward to say all these three-letter agencies, all of them, IRS, CIA, FBI, pick them, pick your favorite. They all have no authority.
Amen.
None.
Okay.
None.
And somebody was also saying something about just language, vocabulary, and words and how much they matter and how they're twisting everything. Good is evil and evil is good. And this is a very spiritual time. And I truly try to stay prayed up with full armor of God on every day. Sometimes several times a day. Because I can see and kind of feel what's going on. And it's scary. It's scary if you let it be.
I'll give you my favorite example when you're in a court of law and they say, do you understand? Now you're like, well, yeah, I comprehend. That's the first thing you think. No, that means you stand under my authority.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that meaning, that word that way. Well, that's what they're asking you when they ask. And there's many, many, many words that are that way, that they've done that. They flip the meaning for purpose of control. So It's up to us to learn all the different ones so we can reassert ourselves and stand in our righteous path that we are entitled to have, because the Creator made us and the rest of the guys are just clowns.
That's a good answer. I use an 1824. I use an 1824 dictionary. Is that still considered, or 1828? One of those two. Is that still standard as being one of the better ones, or is there something else?
Is that are you using the Webster's?
Yes.
Okay, that's a decent one, but you got to remember too how variations of things are applied in a law construct also. So, for instance, like there is a connection between like if you're going to go from a biblical context to a legal definition context, Black's Law and King James Version versus, like, for instance, Bouvier's Law Dictionary and the origins of American common law, which they, really referred to with the 1599 Geneva. That's an example, right? So Tynesdale, the Living, there's different publishers, but I'm just showing you in the context of, the common law and the rights where it's derived from. So
got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It's even more intriguing than that, Laura. The common law is based upon something that William the Conqueror, a Viking, this is the UK crown, is the Viking crown, that he implemented back in the late 1100s. So that is the one used. And when you hear these parasites or, the establishment, when they call out, we need a rules-based world, we have to be, that's, the standard phrase, you heard it many times. They are pointing at the Admiralty law, which is the old Viking seafarer law that have developed through, this history I ran in the beginning here. So all of this, of course, origins somewhere, and then it's organically will grow. But the basis of this, the modus operandi, is very, very visible when you get this kind of, let's call it that we put out the game field and on a timeline. And then it's easier to comprehend and recognize the word magic that is being used upon us. It's to keep us, the sole purpose of it, it's to keep us, well, under the banks, of course, but also to keep us inside the Admiralty law. That never should have entered into
Correct.
to the people, and for sure it should never have entered the US, which
And that
actually had the constitution to
And
try
and
to
that
push
goes
it out.
along with like the birth certificate being in all caps and your law documents being in all
well,
caps.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's all part
Okay.
of it. But you gotta here, don't focus on that because that is a piece. But think of it this way too. So, for instance, if I were to just say English, what physical area would you assert that with?
America.
Okay, but what about like British English? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
English too, right? So what I'm getting at is we have to recognize that there's a universal construct. This is where the parallels come into play. Be careful of pronouns, adjectives, and adverbs. Be careful because when you're under the origin, it always has a subcategory starting with a pronoun, an adjective, or an adverb, right? This is where they get tricky. So it is important also to recognize what Mott was saying about the Constitution. See, the United States of America, specifically, as I just said, right, the United States of America has an actual tangible, by basis of the states and the people, right, an actual uh, defined but also very real context to it. But when you have something like the United States, said in that way, we just think, oh yeah, it's the U.S., right? Like America. Well, American common law is very different than common law because common law is a universal construct of the oligarchy, right? That was tried to
Yeah.
and actually was implemented in a lot of ways. So when you hear about parallel governments, when you hear about parallel anything, it's because of that. So, like American common law, American English, that is something. It's not hokey. It's not anything other than what it is because it's also protected by the Constitution that was set up like nothing else. And so, the universal language would just be deemed as English. But it also, the word English also has Latin roots to it. So it's not just saying English. And that's what makes it universal, if that makes sense. So even in the bar, they speak Babel, right? And that's like fascinating. And then there's an app. It's like learn different languages, speak with Babel. It's like what? This is crazy because it's an amalgamation. Now it's good in the context of communicating things, but should that be bound to us without us given full and clear disclosure? No. You
Absolutely not.
know, we let your yes be yes and your no be no, and leave it at that, right?
See, I'm come from a very strong Marine or military background, and I'm just devastated at what I'm seeing happen to America that my family really did fight hard for.
Yeah, and it's scary because like the DoD, for instance, it's not our military. Okay, these are administrative entities, and so like James was saying, I put it in the purple pill. I can't put it in the nest. I don't know, Tish, if you want to put that up there. So I have a breakdown. It's our 6 remedies. If you look on that, you'll see number 6 is West Virginia v. EPA. So this is massive, right? Because like he said, these agencies have no governmental powers or authorities over us. So wait a minute, wasn't the DoD and HHS involved in the whole pandemic? I do believe they were.
Absolutely. And I think they
And
were part of 9/11 and the Patriot Act and all of it.
sure, there's a lot of involvement there. But is the CIA, the FBI, and all these other 3-letter agencies, are they Congress? No. Are they members of the state
Point.
citizenship, like in the sense of the standing jury of the people? No, they're not.
Was
And
it
they
Bush
call
Senior
us
that did the
foreigners.
CIA? Was it Bush Senior that started the CIA?
No, Bush Sr. did not start the
Or,
CIA.
or, he was
He
like
had
a leader of it at one point or something?
well, he had pivotal roles for sure. He
Okay.
wasn't the leader, so to say. But I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you know, that's why people jokingly say clowns in America, because they love acronyms to the point of look at the dollar, the fiat, for instance. That's not the
Mhm.
U.S. dollar. It's a Federal Reserve note,
I
which
know.
is backed by certain things, but we are those certain things. And this is where the numbering system comes into place. Is if you look at the back of a social security card, not yours, because number one, it tells you it's not yours. It says this is the property of the Social Security Administration. It doesn't say it's your property, the living man or woman. And so it says also then on the bottom right, there's a series number.
Yep.
It starts with E, a letter, and then it has a number. Look at the front of a dollar.
I have looked and I found my social security number being traded in all kinds of countries.
There you
Now,
go.
whether
There's the evidence right
site was
there.
real, huh?
Yeah, that's the evidence right there. So I don't want. I know there's hands up and stuff, but I just wanted to add
I'm
the
sorry,
point
but I
of.
really appreciate your guys' intellect. I am learning. I'm a newbie, and I'm nervous because I'm single and disabled in
Yeah.
this world.
Well, and they wanted to push us in a corner and get us into a point of complacency, so we have to cower down and ask permission to Big Daddy government. This is, you know, their what do they say, operandi motives from the get-go, right? Because you need to be a slave to the system, and this is why it's so important that we know who we are, we stand in honor, we do things honorably, we do no harm, and we help our fellow man. If one man's down, you help pick him up.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
and that's just a basic fundamental way of life. But guess what? They also can't combat against that narrative unless we tacitly accept it. And so if we
Amen.
don't refute and rebut the false presumptions, we're accepting of them. I don't agree with it. I don't say that it's right. I don't think it's right. But in the same respect, we should, right? Because otherwise it stands. Something that's spoken to existence or written down,
Amen. You're
it
right.
becomes something. And if we're allowing that to happen, we're allowing evil to exist. And this is where we really truly, like, deeply can stand up and say, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. I couldn't run fast enough.
Yeah,
But that's just me.
the oldest slogan is, you can't talk about religion and politics. They're two and that was, the beginning of complacency, especially in the Christian church. And that's a whole nother show, but God bless you guys for all you do.
Thank you, Laura. And two quick ones. The English language, of course, contains quite a lot of Latin, but the base of it is Old Norse, and that is a language that Tolkien knew quite well. The Scandinavian languages he was fluent in them, and he was also a intelligence officer during the First World War, which we have talked a little bit about here today. We touched it. And he knew, and the son of a banker, and he traveled the Nordics and so on in between the wars. So he struggled to get his books out, but the young generation now, Laura, thanks heaven, they know their Tolkien, they knew the Lord of the Rings, they are reading the instruction book, and and that book contains some really good language which will, help them out. It is a good read, so I recommend that dearly. And also, I hope your family members, which you maybe have around you, that have served, and we thank them for that. Thank everybody that has served, actually. Many for the wrong reasons. Many millions of young men, women, also civilian people have died for all the wrong reasons. All wars are banksters' wars. That is 99% of the wars. There are some wars that have been fought, the 70, 76 and so on, which was supported, believe it or not, by the Swedish king. The only king. He had to make a revolution in the heartland of this. The first land with social security numbers, mass vaccinations. It tends to always start here, the first central bank, and so we are pretty used to be the guinea pigs around here. And we also started the Second World War, by the way, just by chance, and somebody woke up Wednesday morning and said, hey, let's kick all the other countries into a big world war, and we can just sit here in our neutral little forest, just as Bombadil, and nobody can touch us. And that same goes for Switzerland, which is like a subdivision to the. Oh, you wouldn't believe it when we get into to those. But as said, thank you to all of you that might be listeners here that have served. I hope you are all right there, and take care of your colleagues. There are so many that is veterans that will each day end their lives because of all the nefarious actions that will be taken. And the military could be really good companionships and so on, but it can also bring a man or a woman totally down because the realization of what it's all about. And that is also very tragic. So let's hope for more peace, less wars, and let's go to the hands. Tisha, please.
Bombay, welcome.
Hey guys, I've just been listening to your conversation, and I'm British, English British, whatever you want to call us. And I just want to just add my experience, kind of like a cautionary tale. I mean, I've been listening to these conversations for probably over 20 years. The free man never land sort of kind thing, the straw man, and how British law changed from maritime law in 1666 for I probably mispronounced this, the QV Act of 1666 or QV. I apologize if I've murdered that, but I've listened to conversations.
It's okay. It's French. You get a pass.
Yes. And also, I've seen lots and lots of videos where people have gone in trying to use like the Free Man of the Land Act idea, and working with Black Law's dictionary and their legalese, saying, hey, a person is not a person. I've heard all this, but they usually fail. It still fails. And I've only ever heard in, like, say, 20 years of it actually working once. And that was a person that refused to go into court, but sent his whole message in writing. He knew as soon as he walked into that court, he had lost already. So he actually won by doing everything in writing. And he won about £20,000 compensation. And it also had a common law stamp because he refused to go in. Under in the court, it uses maritime law. So I'm just saying, just be careful along these lines. I believe there's something there, but I don't believe we're quite ready for that yet, or we're not. We need to learn a lot more about that idea, and especially as someone just said, do you understand means do you stand under, and person means like corporation. Entity and dead person and capital letters. I've heard all this before, but I mean, I think it was like 20 years ago. This would sound really silly, but I got a litter fine, just a litter fine, and I got like I refused to pay it because I thought I was in the right because I didn't litter, but they said I did. And I left it alone thinking it'd just go away, worst thing ever. And it went up to, I think some like over £1,000 for a litter fine. And in the end, I managed to take him to court. I got in contact with my local council, who's taken me to court, and told them I wanted you to give me all the information because they have to give all the information. I forget the wording, but if you ask them, they can't refuse. So I got all the information, and I went to court and I argued my case because they always say a lawyer is only there to, make the payment easier, not actually help you. So I went and I argued myself, and I was trying to learn all this stuff. And I managed to get £1,000 fine to a £75 fine. So I take it as a win, but not a complete win. But it's just something you have to be very careful about, I believe. I don't mean to put her down on anyone, but just be very cautious with the idea of free man of the land if that's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I'll leave it there.
You're not the only one, and you're not going to be the last one. There's several. And why is this so difficult? If you've been studying it that long, why is it so difficult for you to walk in and and say what needs to be said and them listen to you? Why? Because the men around you lack courage. They lack understanding. They lack comprehension. They lack fortitude. They lack purpose. That's why. What
Wisdom.
wisdom? They have no purpose. When a man has purpose, he doesn't mind being the first one out front because his family, the nation depends on him. And when he knows what's right, that's what's going to lead the way, and it's going to be divine. Whatever happens, happens. But he will not take a knee. And if every man will sit back and watch that one man go forward, so be it. At the end of the day, that man knows who he is, and every man that sits back and questions and doesn't do a thing, they know who they are too. And I'm here to say that I consider them complicit. They are protecting because they are unwilling to do the work required. They're unwilling to they're so quick to step up and say, "Well, you need to watch out. You need to do this. You need to do what? You're telling me?" I've done the risk analysis, and I know what the risk is of sitting back and doing nothing. And I know the risk of moving forward and knowing who I am is standing upon what I believe and standing upon my principles. Like Stereo always said, it's about principles. How can you go wrong when a man stands on principles alone? You can't. We're here to teach. I know the consequences of having the things on my account that I have. I know the consequences. I don't care. I don't care what another man thinks. I don't care who judges. I really don't. Because if I can, I should be learning other stuff right now and I should be moving forward, but I'm not because I don't believe we should leave one person behind, one man or woman behind. I believe that every day that I feel led to come in here every day and find somewhere to speak on something so somebody can hear truth. And if it's nothing more for them to hear it the first time. So when the second person, because the first time somebody told me about this, I laughed at them. I first time somebody told me about crypto at Bitcoin at $300, I laughed at them. It's just several things. I laughed at them. I made fun of them. And the reason am where I am now is because when you tell me something, before I laugh at you, I'm going to go and I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not going to just, oh, you're an idiot because I've never heard that. Well, maybe there's something to it. It makes a little sense. So I have a duty to prove you wrong. And that's what I did. And that's why I'm standing here. And that's why you see what you see on my account because they weren't wrong. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Creditor. Good,
Yeah,
Rob.
buddy.
Hey, creditor brother, I salute you. I love you, man. Thank you for saying that because at the end of the day, look, we're leaving here with exactly what we brought here, and this is a rescue mission. We have to rescue our fellow man from the enslavement of terrorists. And those terrorists come in the form of teachers and preachers and doctors and politicians and bankers. And they come in all of these different sizes and forms and shapes, but they're here to lie and divide and deceive and destroy and devour. And the old adage that there is no greater love than a man who's willing to give his life and lay down his life for another. And what is time in these spaces other than life? I mean, we are putting our time into helping the Great Awakening advance itself. And we know that courage is contagious. And because the potency of courage is truth, and that immutable undeniable, indestructible, timeless truth. The virus of courage is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the virus of a COVID-19 bioweapon. So if we know that courage is contagious, and there's a lot of people that are sleeping out there, and we got to get up and chop wood every single day. We got to try to get up. We got to try to wake people up. We got to try to use compassion, empathy, patience, forgiveness, and strength, because people are going to attack us. They're going to call us every name in the book. Just look at Donald Trump. Standing on principle, standing on values, standing on honor, standing on courage, and he's taken every sling and arrow this world of banking assassins can manufacture and throw at this man. And he's demonstrating courage. He's almost, with his every smile, his every awkward dance, his every fist pump, he's basically saying to the bankers in front of the world, that's all you got? I'm still standing. You can't touch me. You can't lay a glove on me, because my DNA is the DNA of God. We were made in the image and the likeness of the Creator. And this world that doesn't believe that, or doesn't honor or love God, or doesn't serve God, or doesn't spend the time to try to understand the laws of man, the natural laws of the universe, want to do everything they can to deceive us and deprive us and make us stupid and sick and detached and ignorant and slaves to them. They want to be the God instead of us allowing us the freedom to worship the one true God. And how do they do that? More than anything else, it's the monetary system. Because they've figured out a way to break our lives down to seconds and minutes and hours and days, and then put a number to the value of our time, and then the current of our life spent working is exchanged for currency that they manufacture out of thin air. They put a manufactured piece of paper and call it value for our life energy that we spend working on this planet. And then once we contract with them and take their paper contract, we consented all our rights away, because we have consented to all the terms connected to that Federal Reserve note that include all the IRS tax codes and any other thing Gary Gensler or a regulator decides to shoot out of their pie hole. And unbeknownst to us, through our lack of knowledge and through contracting with their system, that's where the whole render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's came from. It's their system, it's their rules, it's their chicanery. Fight them till the days come along, or understand what they're doing, choose your battles. But sooner or later, people need to wake up and realize, I ask myself this all the time, if we're the smartest human beings alive, if we're anointed, if we are created for purpose, and we're deployed by the great king for purpose and not just manufactured out of thin air to be an employee of the matrix, let's assume that we're deployed for purpose. Why are we the only living species on this planet that has to pay to eat and live?
That is the question, Rob. We are being tricked, of course. And talking about one of the persons, he's not the only one, but one of the persons as you do, and he went for one company, and that's the company that controls the current in your socket, and it also controls the flow of the currency. And as a river flows, the river ends up against the bank when it turns. And the bank is from the good old Longobards, and now Tisha knows that I'm going to say her ancestors, so she is partly to blame for the banks. The bank is a Viking word, it means bench. So when you go in and break the bank, that was what they did back in the old days when somebody was playing not by the rules. They made the money trade from benches. That is why a certain guy kicked some benches down in one book.
Absolutely. And when you go into that building that's called a court, and you enter that room, that would be like a, let's say, teller maybe at the bench, who has a note there. He's kind of like the bank manager, and he's like, there's a debt before the court. You going to pay it or not? That's what they're asking you, essentially. Are they saying it in those exact terms? If they said it in that way, do you think you'd maybe look at law a little bit differently?
Yeah, and the courts are more or less, to feed every greedy monster and to take care of opposition in many aspects. And believe me, that Assange, he ended up, all of the trouble he ended up in. It started in Stockholm. It started with a person with inside a cult, you could say, which is more or less the Chris Lawn, as you heard the Nefarious Pope speak about, and you can see this all over the place now. That is in the sub-oligarchs agenda to promote the Chris Lawn as the very fittingly a one-word religion to a one-world global rule. But that's not going to happen now, thanks heaven. But well, we are where we are. But this is and all the wordings. You are born from the water of your mother through a birth channel. And of course, you have the bar, you pass the bar, and all of these wordings. There's a lot of word magic to keep us stupefied or helpless in those situations. So, very good allegory, John. You can consider the court a court that applies the Admiralty law is actually not a real court, because it's a court of commerce. That's why they use the legalese as they do, and so on. And that is the hijacking we are talking about from the 1871, actually.
Yep, an administrative court is what that is. And not to get into the flag thing or whatever, but there are things known as flag etiquette, and it's very telling as far as the status of what jurisdiction or what room or what entity you're walking in and how you're dealing with things. And that's kind of the hidden hand of things, right? They don't tell you this straightforward. There isn't a sign that's posted stating that this means this. We just assume. But this is where they claim to have plausible deniability as well. And then we are idiots, more or less, because we don't know. But in the same sense, I'm not going to say they're right, but they also hit it. So there's that. But that's why it's so important to not only refute and rebut the false presumptions, but to correct the record and set the record straight. Because if we don't, then we are ourselves tacitly accepting. And I don't know exactly who had brought it up. He's from England. Brought it up, only hearing one case. And yeah, that's very common. And the reason why is because we have other contracts existing in other administrative entities that are attached to the same system. It's one system. It's a commercial construct. So, it's like we're running around with one foot in and one foot out, and then, we're scared to get out of one part of it, but we're running rapid on the other part. No, it's an all or nothing thing. And if not, we have to know how to stand in order to have standing, because otherwise we have no standing, and then we are ward of the court or ward of the state, and they have to do it for us.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to know how the administrative process works, because you do this outside of the courts, because that's not our court. That is not our jurisdiction. And if you're going to cross that barrister, you better damn well know what you're talking about and how to operate. And you better not be talking as you the man or the woman, because you're the first priority creditor and holder in due course of that entity. And if you're going to attach that branding tag on you, they're going to put it on you.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
really
it's
important
like
to know who you are.
it's like running up into DC, acting like you can do what you want, not knowing what DC is, not knowing anything about DC, and wondering why you get treated like a foreign at war, a foreigner at war, because that's exactly how you're going to get treated. But I'm not even mad. I'm at the point where I'm not even mad at them for having a system for us to follow, because if I was in their shoes, you were in their shoes, would you tell us?
No.
We don't act like we're grown. We don't act like we're in control of things. We birth. Mont just literally walked you through the birthing process, birthing your child, and you immediately sign it over to the state as a bastard child, because the father's not there and to sign anything. And we walk around with these federal debt notes that we trade, acting like we're doing something and doing commerce with foreign, quote unquote, money, currency. And we don't represent ourselves. So yes, we're getting treated as the way we represent ourselves. So when you stand up, of course you're going to get a fight. Of course, because how long has this gone on? We don't document our history. How many people are writing down everything that they're going through as they're going through this? So future generations will know every step. Future generations need to know everything going through your head right now. That is how we lose this over time. How many generations did it take in my family for this to be watered down and gone? Because my mom, my aunt, they didn't have any kind of business sense. My grandmother, no business sense. My great grandfather, he made all of his wealth during the Great Depression. That doesn't add up. Something's not right here. So they didn't care. He didn't write anything down. It was probably nefarious, but we don't know because he didn't write anything down. Are we writing things down to pass on? We should be.
Yes, we should be. And we also need to tell the stories, the saga. Talking about the legal rooms, land, air, water, there could be, this is speculative, but when Mr. Trump goes up and he goes for one company, otherwise it's more or less deep state or swamp. He goes for one company, and that is the Ericsson company. That is owned by the ancestors, probably the most powerful family in the world. Not just with banking, but these are the creators of the Bank for International Settlements. So he goes after the Wallenbergs and he creates, probably together with lots of wise people that are helping out in this time we are living in, not only from the US, from all over the place, a new legal realm. And he creates Space Force, which will be put on top on the Ericsson company as of September 20, well, August, September 2019. It's a little bit fuzzy when that happened. So this we need to consider. So that's the one he went after. And the owner family there, their company is, them being the kings of cyber war, having all the patents for, not all, but most of the patents and the internet and the telecom infrastructure globally. Their company is called Investor. Investor is the largest owner of Vanguard, and Vanguard and BlackRock cross owns each other, and they pretty much own all the necessary company to keep the leverage. And that will also include that they have direct ownership over NASDAQ, which also provides the tech platform, the trade platform for the 150 stock markets. These guys, they know what they're doing, but hopefully they are also have realized what they are doing. So what we are seeing right now in front of our eyes is that the big oligarchs, the real ones, they are throwing all the sub-oligarchs, the the bribed, the blackmailed, the greedy, all of these people in the middle or below, they are throwing them under the bus intentionally. This is why things are, you still see these operations go on in one end, and in the other end it just disappears. You see that this agenda 2021 2030 turning into 2050. You see the banks being quite desperate and so on. So we are in for a paradigm shift. We are in for a ride. And as we talked about earlier, we have the closing of the Fed emergency printing as of March this year. And now we are seeing this, the consequences of this. We can see probably the panic in the private banking sector, which is the military industrials, private banks, more or less. They go together, hand in hand, horse and carriage. So, and this is all happening at once, so it's really hard to see it all and to understand it. It's to recognize and comprehend it. It's a little bit easier if we can provide the saga, the story of how this happened, how the BIS came to be, how McKittrick, the protege of Wallenberg, just happened to be the boss of, well, not the real boss, but the front man for the Bank for International Settlements during the war and so on, up until Bretton Woods. And then from the Bretton Woods, it was full speed ahead. And quadrupling or even more of the world population to feed the Ponzi scheme. This is the bare overview of what has happened. And if you understand, if you comprehend that, if you can recognize that, it's a little bit easier to orient yourself in this fast spinning paradigm shift and in the fast moving information flow. But they dropped the ball, because otherwise we would not be sitting here speaking, actually. So that is the good thing. Let's go to the hands. Sorry for being long-winded.
Bombay, please jump in.
I was just going to ask, like many countries, lawyers. I mean, we believe that your documents were edited because we heard something from your forefathers once saying never let a lawyer into any government position. But that's a different story. But with all the countries that use a bar exam, I mean, in England, bar is British Accredited Registrar. What does it mean in other countries, or is it the same? That's my only question. Sorry.
John, go ahead.
It's the same.
That's funny. That is one part of meaning, but the whole wordplay on it is, well, there's the International Bar Association, the IBA, and then the ABA, which is the American Bar. They both have two separate constructs and duties under ecclesiastical law, is one of the roles. We don't have a seated pope. There's a Jesuit that was installed. Tells you all you need to know. Same with Prince Charles, the German, who is not anywhere, anyhow, in any way, shape, and form dealing with any sort of crown. That doesn't exist. Tells you all you need to know, right? So now we have the banking cartel pass through of the City of London, and you have the Office of the Pope, who's in charge of liquidation and asset distribution, and a now dissolved International Bar. Fascinating, right? So the reason why I'm saying that is because they are all part of the private banking system that is all commercial. So under ecclesiastical law, things on earth under this is in commerce, all things in commerce, and they are attached corporately, except the people are not attached unless we operate in commerce, which we have the unlimited right to contract in and out of any contract. And so it's about an operational standing. It's about a awareness, a knowledge-based standing. And it's really about removing the false presumption. So that's where I go back to the tacit acceptance. Now there's a joke because it's the hidden cloak of secrecy with the knowledge that they have in their enlightenment path of the hidden hand. And there's a joke with the bar club members that what does the bar stand for? And there's all these different things, this, that, they're, British accreditation registry, blah, blah, blah. But the joke is they have no standing. I mean, you get it? Like, there's no standing in the bar. The bar stands for nothing. It has no standing. So that's kind of like where it's like, oh God, once you think about that and that sinks in. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because the bar may be the bar as in the jurisdiction bar as the barrister goes inside a courtroom. Now you're bound to being a ward of the state if you've turned your rights over to the lawyer in a contract form. And, it's more importantly about the power of attorney, right? And our assets and asset control and the bondage because of that. So they're going to handle our funds for us, and they're going to charge and rack up these charges on these bonds unless we claim them back and know how to handle those. So yeah, unfortunately it is about the money. They brand us with a tag and stick us in a clink, but that tag is not us because it's a different name. It looks the same, but stylized, not exactly. Use case, not exactly. So I just want to add those points. Hopefully that helps.
No rights. Did you have a question or a comment?
I would just like to comment that this is an ongoing battle, and we have to be continually immersed because it's like learning a new language. And as far as the obstacles that they throw up, I like to listen to the Bad Wolf, and he was drawing a circle with his finger, and he said, we find a little leak in their dam, and they plug it. Well, we find another way around it, and then they plug that. It's a continuing, ongoing battle, and we need to immerse ourselves in this lingo, like I said, like another language. And it's important to be continually learning and listening to other voices, listening to anyone who has a little bit of a leg up on any of us. And it's just amazing that we can have these forums, and I thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you for those kind words. As a matter of fact, this is intentionally done to us. So first out with the German school or the Prussian school is Germany, of course. In the 1870s, it turns to be, the only form of school that they will run there. And later on, it will be implemented, that kind of school, which is, we could call it a spoon-feeding school, which will call out reactions as spoken here before when you speak to people and say, I know the truth, this is it, I'm not going to listen anymore. This is the typical formatting that is done in Prussian school style. Later on here, this latest decades we have, it turned into to be the postmodern, and then you get all of these HBTQ, PLM, and whatever trans bullshit that also, of course, is tested in the trans things and so on. It's tested in Germany in the 1920s, then reshaped and coming back with the slow cooking of the frog yet again. And we have this very family friendly kind of drag shows and persons that are not really, all the way out there and being in the very mainstream, and then you just you turn up the hill a bit on the cooking. And let me put it this way: thanks heaven that there are so many young people 15 to 35 that is resilient to this, and even so more, they are actively now protesting against it, and getting the defenses up, and this is a really, really good thing. And I thank you for the comment, because it was this with plugging the leak, when all these young kids, young persons, individuals, when they are affecting their environment, their friends, their and so on, they do it quite much more efficient than us boomers trying to many of us are boomers, not all of us, of course. And to you listeners that are hopefully a little bit younger and so on, stay strong, hang in there, keep on keep on pushing and punching the envelope in front of you, and hopefully you get something out of the history, so you have a solid ground to stand on, and just keep on pushing, because this is the time to do it. We will not get any more windows of opportunity. I'm not talking like tomorrow, but this is a broad window. We are talking about some periods of time here, but now things are moving very quickly compared to just a year ago, or 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The speed of the information coming out, and let's call it the enlightenment process, being better than ever before. So we are going for gold here. Well, not competing, but we are making a dash for the cash, as they say in NASCAR. Let's go to the hands.
Laura, did you have a question, hon?
I actually do. My sister I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and my sister is going through a divorce, and her friend recommended calling the Columbus Bar Association for a referral. And when she called, it said the service is no longer available. And that was just a couple days ago, and I found that really interesting. I haven't had a chance to figure out why. But when I heard the comment about the international, I'm like, well, maybe it's trickling down.
Did you have a question, Laura?
Yeah, I was wondering, is it like trickling down to like the state to where like the bar associations and states aren't available? Because when we called for a lawyer referral at the Columbus Bar Association, they said they don't offer that service anymore. And I thought that was strange.
I'm not really hearing you.
Okay.
They're not. There you go. Much better.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, when we called the Bar Association here in Columbus to get a referral for a lawyer, which was not my idea, they said that the service was no longer available. So I just found that very strange.
Oh,
I
interesting.
used to be a court reporter, and I have a little bit of law background. But things are very, very different from when I was court reporting in the 90s. I mean, this is incredible what I'm seeing. It was corrupt then, but it's just like impossible now. I'm very interested in learning more of the common law. Like I said, I'm new here. I have a decent brain. Is there somewhere I could start, or do you guys have, a course or, study guide or whatever?
There are so much information available to this, but give creditor and James I'm not sure if James is jumped down to listener or whatever. Give them a follow. Jump into their spaces where they are, and those are great spaces, and you will have a steep learning curve. And also ask people, that will follow you now, which is in this room, to give you some YouTube tips and so YouTube recommendations and so on, because there are many people digging into this that are really good, that is not hanging out on Spaces as well. Spaces is the most, according to me, the most efficient way to grab the information and recognize it. But sometimes these spaces can also be quite messy. Usually not with Tish. So, of course, follow the host, follow the co-hosts. Jon is participating in many spaces. Tisha is running many spaces. The secretary is holding some spaces. Sometimes those, though, are in Swedish/Mordorian, the base root language for or the Old Norse, as we talked about before with Tolkien and so on. So it's sort of on the other side of the Atlantic. So it's quite a strange language. Captions doesn't really work either. I'm sorry to say, but it's a marvelous language, actually. And Tolkien was very fascinated by it because you can be very precise in your wording. Though the problem with the Prussian school is that when you finish grammar school, normal school, you have 2,000, 5,000 words maybe, while somebody that is picked up to be, a gatekeeper or some other function within the system, the Nefarious system, the ones that will go to the Ivy League universities and so on, they will have 25,000 to 50,000 words in their vocabulary. So that is how you create this kind of understanding, as they do in court and so on. The language is a weapon as well, but it is a two-edged blade as well. So that's worth thinking about, actually. So you are keeping your head on a swivel. Tish, we are dragging over a little bit, but since we have Creditor, Rob, and Up, maybe we should throw, and Jon, you are co-hosting as per usual. So are we bringing up any more subjects on the Nefarious Admiralty law, which is a corporation policy? It doesn't fit in the title because there's not enough letters to be used, but that is a corporation policies. So when you enter a court of the Admiralty, those are actually considered to be corporation policies within the commerce zone, which is it's a lot of hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo, but it will end up with not being compatible at all with the American Constitution. Mordor, where we have the starting point of all of this, and the Wallenberg family that I've been talking about, which has sort of taken up the baton in the long running game of the let's call it the rock star of central banking, Axel Oxenstierna. They sort of picked up this baton in the 1900, beginning of the 1900th century. So if we are considering that the Constitution and the foundation of the United States of America is not compatible with using actually the Admiralty law with inside its premises, its requirements, the whole setup, it's not compatible, but yet it's still there. And this is what we can see now, especially with the trials with the president and so on. I think many people are seeing through this now, and so therefore I think it's very important. I think we have got the history out quite good today. I hope so, on the timeline, to give some foothold for you guys. There will be, of course, put out quite a lot of reading to do for the build-up of this and the different topics that we have been. The Jumbotron seem to be quite interesting this time. So, Creditor, Rob? Bombay, I still have a hand up. I'm not sure if the screen has frozen here for me, but if you have some last question, Bombay, or so, please fire away.
I didn't have my hand up, but I do have a question. Has anyone heard about the title of nobility? It was supposed to be in a section that was removed from the Constitution. I'm just curious. I'm always asking questions. Sorry.
Yeah, it was actually called the Title of Nobilities Act. So one thing I want to add, because this is kicking my ass right now, just to put it bluntly. I'm doing my imperfect best to try and just free everyone from the chains that bind them, right? And I'm not here to play tiddlywinks, and I'm quite frankly just absolutely exhausted with the infighting, trying not to take part in it, because there's 8 billion people and there's 8 billion different levels of wisdom and knowledge and inner standing, right, of what is what. And I'm not a judge. I'm not here to say what you don't, and what you don't know is this, that, and the other, and whatever. So that becomes difficult, right? But I will say that a U.S. citizen is not an American. They are two different things. It's part of a parallel system that exists, and it's real. Now, you can just be a man, you could just be a woman, you could be sovereign, I don't really care, honestly, what you call yourself. I don't call yourself a puppy for all I care. But if a puppy is going to trespass on my rights, if a puppy is going to cause harm to anyone that I witness or myself firsthand, I know how to act in that manner. Extend out a extension of grace, do a notice, give him time, bring forth remedy and relief, have a discussion, do it as a man with honorable standing from where I'm coming from. Or I can operate in that sort of commercial jurisdiction if I choose. But because I choose to operate in that jurisdiction, I still have the same intent on not doing harm. See, the people who want to have control and power over everything, they instinctively come from a place of intentional harm and trespass, because that's the rooted cause of misleading, misguiding, disinformation, misinformation, all tactical warfare things, mental mind games, just so they can have more. This is not a competition, ladies and gentlemen. There's more than enough out there in abundance, known as dominion, the abundancy of what God provided us here with on earth for everyone to never have a need in their life. But this piece of paper and this thing that comes out of the earth that's called gold or silver that people have control over in a fictitious way, because nobody knows the true amount of gold that's out there, but they add a value to it, right? Control the mind, control the people. And so one last thing I want to add is, just keep in mind, there's a debate today. There's different things. I'm going to make a fun prediction about it. Regardless, just because I think it's funny.
Please
to a certain
do.
extent. I think at the 30-minute mark, Poopy Pants will get arrested, but we'll see what happens. If not, I'll be like, plot twist, but okay, whatever. The movie changes, and it's like, but listen, forget about the popcorn narrative and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I get it's fun, it's cute, and whatever, and but life is a lesson, and all of our circumstances. It's not life ending unless there's actual threat of life in front of you. So don't get too overwhelmed by all of this information, because that's the point. You know, as far as I'm concerned, don't harm nobody and don't take what's rightfully not yours, and we're good, you know? And I think if you live in that manner in life, you know, whether or not the, octagonal sort of red thing with a couple words on it in all capital letters with the white border around it actually is a law or not, I will dispute that till the death. But in the meantime, don't be stupid. Make sure you're not going to like actually be a threat to harm somebody, you know. And I did put a couple things. I'm gonna land it here, Cred. I did put a couple things also in the purple pill. One of them is a link. So I have a whole drive folder full of some declassification documents, which, by the way, everything's declassified at this point. It's just a matter of finding it because, you know, the control narratives. But all the information's out there. It's all readily available. I'm just doing my part to provide it. But I have like 7,000 different documents and scanned in books and everything like that. So it's pretty extensive. But I'm dropping a few that's money related, IRS, and you can even see the infighting. I'm going to put a 2,700 page book actually by the Department of Treasury back in 2014, by the way. And they actually wrote from their interagency department, which was the, I think it was like the IRX fraud accountability project or something like that. So the Department of Treasury actually did an investigation on the whole hoax of paying taxes. I mean, think about that. The Department of Treasury is going after the IRS. Wait, I'm sorry, what? I thought you guys were in bed together.
Is that
or maybe
really,
that was,
that's happening now?
well, no, that was written in 2014. But my point is, this is really the depth and the like dumbfounding layers of the deception that have been built up and built up and built up and built up over time, right? So I just want to throw one suggestion out there, and that's just take the information and take it at your time. This is your time because each and every one of us, this is our life, our families, right? Our futures that we have to protect first before we can do anything to truly be there in an assistance way, other than obviously if someone's down, you help them out. So, you know, all this stuff is down there, but there's some really, really good reads, IRS related, tax related, that sort of thing, as well as how internationally that ties into the Bank of International Settlement, and the IMF, the clearinghouses, which is a really important one because that's where SWIFT passes through. At right here on our land and soil in America. So thank you guys again. I really appreciate all of the wonderful, amazing, incredible insight, you know, and this is how we do it. This is how we roll together. And some of us will meet, some of us we won't, but at least we're doing it together, you know, because that's how we conquer the evil people that are trying to control everything.
Jump in, Creditor.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if it's too much, if it's what you're hearing, if it resonates with you, it's not too much, not at all. Um, just reach out to us. We've shown that we're here. That's the only reason I am here, and my account is devoted to you, to the education as a tool. There's no playing. There's no grab ass. There's no nothing on my account. It's strictly information, and for you as a resource. If you get in a bind or something and you need a quick reference, you can log on to X, go straight to my page, and it's right there for you. And if there's something you want to know that's not on there, let me know. And I know for a fact you can reach out to John, myself. I don't know Rob, but I'm pretty certain Rob would be willing to help you. Mod, we're all here. And if you can teach us something, I'm telling you right now, I'll be a student in a heartbeat. I am not the smartest, sharpest tool in the shed. I'm just here doing my thing. So if I can help you in any way, please reach out. I'll talk to just about anybody and help just about anybody. I'll leave it right there.
Thank you for that, Creditor. Laura, did you have a question? And Laura, I'll send you a list of the names.
I appreciate
James
that.
as well. No problem.
I want to thank you so much for hosting and co-hosting, y'all. My my family doesn't understand or see things like I do or patterns like I see. And they kind of just call me delusional and crazy, but then it ends up that that's what happens or had happened or whatever. And you guys have given me hope today, that there are more people out there like me that want to leave a land of freedom to my babies, my grandchildren. I got twin girls that were just born 8 months ago. One's black and one's white. How about that? I mean, these kids are special. And, my family, one was FBI, one was CIA, crazier than the loon the CIA guy was. But I mean, I learned a lot. And a lot of this information is compartmentalized from different areas. And what I try to do sometimes, I know you guys are smarter than me, is I take it all in and then figure out what's true in those different compartments and how it would flow. And sometimes that works for me. But I love you guys. You have given me a lot of hope. And just that somebody is there to help. I'm kind of all alone in this world. I've been single for 8 years, and after the stroke, I'm not sure where I'm going to live. Neither here nor there. God always provides. But you have given me hope that there's somebody there to help that is knowledgeable and not trying to take me for all I have, which is very little.
Thank you, Laura. You could DM me and I'll point you in the right direction. And that's anybody in this space. Feel free, and I'll point you in the direction of all these brilliant minds. Rob, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to, kind of echo draft off of what Creditor said. I'm 100% about education and knowledge. There's no monkey business on my account. I don't charge anything, never have, don't monetize it. I'm not endorsed. I don't sponsor anybody and they don't sponsor me. Everything's free. I've got a Substack channel with maybe 160, 175, I don't know how many research articles on everything that really touches kind of the conversation that we've had tonight, from banking to what is money to geopolitics to history to faith. I mean, it's all interconnected. I mean, the connective tissue, you just keep pulling on the string and one thing leads to another and leads to another. But there's not a one of us here that has all the answers, bottom line. And in this crazy quantum world that's accelerating at the speed of light and quantum computing, every single one of us on this space is learning that the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. I mean, it is literally impossible to know it all. So we've all got to keep that humble spirit. We got to dig. We have to have an open mind. We have to be able to ask questions. And for someone to say, I love the Laura, you use the term pattern. This is all about pattern recognition. And if you can recognize the patterns and see it, then, Nikola Tesla was a pattern recognitionist. A artist can see a pattern and paint something on a board. Electrical engineers can see patterns and then they can deduce things. Just because someone can't see the patterns that you see, they'll oftentimes jump to a conclusion like calling us stupid or calling us crazy or conspiracy theorists. Don't ever let someone tell you that the pattern recognition that you have and the things that you see, how the dots connect, make perfect sense to you. Just because they don't see what you see, just understand their desire to want to knock you down or call you a name or knock you off your game. That's on them, not on you. Don't take their poison. Don't listen to what they have to say. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to fight back. You don't have to argue with them. Just understand them, move on, and stay standing on ground of your truth, what you know to be true, and do your own research. And faith is a law. Once you understand that you have a mind and you have the ability to connect dots, and that you weren't given a lesser serving of intuition or standing in God's kingdom than somebody else was. Don't let someone put you in a box, tell you that you're not worthy or you're not capable of understanding this, or until you get a consensus of 20 people that agree with you, you must be crazy. That's all baloney. Just get up every day with hope and purpose and discipline and chop wood, learn something new every day with a humble heart and a humble mind and an eager spirit, and one foot in front of the next. And in 4 months from now, or 6 months from now, or a year from now, you're going to be hosting your own spaces and teaching people in your community, because you're going to become a subject matter expert and in the top 2 or 3% of people in this world, because you did a little bit of work every single day. So don't, learn all you can from us, and I learn all I can from Creditor and Mott and Tisha and everybody I can learn from. If I'm not learning something new every single day, I'm doing it wrong. So don't let anybody, and don't you tell yourself that you're not capable, or we're above you. No, we've just been doing something longer. Longer doesn't mean better. It just means longer. So that's all I wanted to say. But thank you for tonight's space, y'all. It was really good.
Thank you very much, Rob. You've been you've been on top of the game here today, and I thank you for the wisdoms. And it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And talking about wisdom, we have Mr. Skaldam from another Five Eyes country. We have not gone into this with the, with the, let's call it the intelligence service nefarious side of it too much, because that tends to be a separate issue. It is not a separate issue, but it tends to get away a little bit from the timeline and so on. But there are some things to talk about. But Five Eyes countries, Skaldam, welcome from down under, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I freaking slept in this morning, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it. But I jumped in. John was talking about the debate and the lead up to the debate, and that he gets arrested on stage. So I laughed because I still think, I honestly think that Biden is a puppet for the Trump campaign, and this is truly Trump's second term. I don't know why I think that. I just I don't know. But yesterday I was just fiddling around with the flags, and the flags, the Dutch East India Company, the British East India Company. You have a look at the British East India Company, and their flag has got the red, white stripes with the British flag in where the stars are. And then you look at the Dutch East India Company, and they're red, white, and blue as well. And also, you have a look at their V, and their V. And then all of a sudden, I'm thinking, Churchill, that wasn't a victory sign at all. Maybe he was holding up the V sign for the East India Company, because he does it an awful lot. There's a lot of photos of him holding up the V sign.
Yeah, I would say that Churchill was a good servant of the oligarchy. He actually made it to be the first honorable citizen of the United States. Woo! And Churchill is a nefarious one. He also is involved in the false flag of Pearl Harbor. No doubt about that. That is no doubt. So the second honorable citizen of the US, and there are just a few, maybe it's exploded these latest years, but that is Raoul Wallenberg, and he's pushed in there by no less than this evening's speaker, Mr. Joe Biden, the best voting ambassador for a Trump campaign, I would say. So I agree with you there, Skaldam. Totally. you can't make shit like this up. You cannot make a hunter's office in House of Sweden up. You can't make their deals and doings in Ukraine with regards of the no-show jobs and all of this bribing and so on. You cannot make things up like Bill Clinton receiving $750,000, the highest paying speech ever. This is something Trump talks about when he goes after the Ericsson company and thereby also the Wallenbergs. So this will be very interesting to see where this lands. It will be very interesting this evening. So, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm not sure about the hands, Tish, because my
We have
screen's
one more Bombay.
yeah.
I was just going to say, I heard a story once from Native American or Indian, basically. I don't know what tribe, an Indian. I don't know what you call them. I apologize. But I heard a story once about where they talked about the three flashes. Basically, I've always thought of that as World War One, World War Two, World War Three. And they'd said we're only going to stop the third flash by north, south, east, west coming together to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now that I've always believed, and that's why I reach out to other countries. I met before that I didn't care about other countries. I wouldn't care about America. I wouldn't care about France. I wouldn't care about Russia or any of these countries. But now I kind of believe that, and that's why I'm here now. I've spent many years going through the stories of England, and now I've only spent like about 3 years going through the stories of America and what's happening in Australia. I mean, I only started looking at America because I saw I believe how they rigged your election. And after the false flag of J6 and all that, I watched the videos and I could spotted them. That's Antifa, that's Antifa, that's Antifa. I can spot them easy. You're smashing up your window. So
Yeah, proudly exported from Sweden, of course. And Soros is a puppet of the Wallenbergs from the get-go as well. And that's why we hand out the Nobel Prize, to all of the actors, the nefarious ones. That's the Nobel Prize is, maybe one of the biggest psyops. So there is a lot of things, coming out of spreading out of this little Nordic country, which the president calls, well, it's very, very small, but it's very sharp, and he means it, and that's the only, So Trump is going for the Swedish oligarchs and thereby also Sweden, because we are a corporation here. We are a corporation. If you guys feel like you are in a corporation, which you pretty much are, we are truly a corporation. There's no limit. There's no line between corporate and government here. Public private.
well,
There's no. It is totally crazy, and we are still a kingdom. We are still a kingdom. And we have a government representing the kingdom. That and it's kind of strange two-part system, it's, and with many political parties, it's all a mess. Our constitution is, well, you could say it's sort of in the other end from the American one. It is the opposite. It is the opposite.
well, I'll cut my story as short as I can now. I just basically believe we all have part of the puzzle, but we all need to start talking to try and see if we can put this puzzle together. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yep,
Thanks.
I totally understand. You are part of the Five Eyes countries. That is Canada, United States of America, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia. That's the core ones that sits on the let's call it the World Wide Web, and all the intelligence, the main sources of intelligence services and so on, and all these operations. And just by accident, there is a little sixth entity, the Soren's Eye from the picture the telephone tower in Stockholm at the time when Tolkien was there. That is the Sauron's Eye. He knew what they were up to. He was working in intelligence services during the First World War. He was not even allowed into the cryptography and so on the Second World War. Though he wanted to, to serve, but he was not allowed. So he knew this, and he knew it well. He actually was, debating and so on in the newspapers against the central bankers, one ring to rule them all. So we could pay some attention to that as well. That is, he was South African from the beginning, so Bombay, please dig into Tolkien. Give me a follow to try to find out. There are plenty of information. I will put, give me a DM. I will put you some links to some good information there. So, Skaldum, we are wrapping up. I am so forever thankful that you are up early down under and, giving us a little send off from down under. There will be things to listen back to. We might, we will be working on the Australian space as well. So, let's get this together, and I think we will wrap it up there. I can see Kitty down as a listener with her hand up, so I think she's on the listeners. So, famous last words, Tish, John? Because I'm gonna crash my good old banged up Su-37 loaded with some really stinky noble dynamite, or merchant of that dynamite, and crash it straight into the front doors of the Monvik Castle, and it will go boom, and it will go boom. And I thank you all for joining this space, and I hope you will enjoy the very special debate this evening. And take care, everybody. See you the next time. Tish, John, the secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for, spending some time with us this evening. Follow each other, please. And, remember, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. So just dig into it a little bit. I thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you so much. And we will see you next Thursday. Have a great night. Does anybody have anything else to add? Good night, all.